Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Historical. Something I think maybe get lost in translation with my page and podcasts and everything is human-centered stories. And with my background in mental health and substance abuse, this also means I tell stories about lives and addictions and things that affect all of us and our family members. And the title of this episode is The Man Who Couldn't Cash Out. And it's a story I've been sitting on for quite some time, but I think it's time to tell this story about a man I once worked with named Daniel. Daniel won $5,000 one afternoon, and then he lost it. But that's not the story here. The story is what happened in the 5 minutes after he hit that $5,000. Because he didn't celebrate. He exhaled. A deep, involuntary exhale. Kind of like someone who had been underwater longer than they realized. And for a brief second, Daniel felt relief. Not so much joy, but relief. Relief that maybe the pressure would ease. Maybe this month wouldn't be so tight. Maybe he could reset everything and just be better. But the relief only lasted seconds. Then something else moved in. His brain didn't say, "Hey, buddy, you're safe." His brain said, "Hey, man, you're hot. And when you're hot, you don't leave. You press. You press the button." Momentum feels like control, and control feels like power. And Daniel, well, he hadn't felt powerful in a long time. He saw the cash out button. He even hovered over it. He whispered to himself, "Stop, just stop." And that whisper was sincere. That whisper was the rational part of him speaking. But addiction, my friends, doesn't remove rationality. It actually competes with it. And in that moment, the louder voice said, "If you stop, this ends. The excitement ends." And with the excitement ending, it meant the rush would drain. And when the rush drained, the quiet would return. And in that quiet was grief. You see, Daniel didn't gamble because he wanted to be rich. He gambled because he wanted interruption. Interruption of boredom. Interruption of self-doubt. Interruption of the echo in the house after his spouse left. You see, Daniel had lost his marriage slowly. Not in one giant explosion, but in repetition. Things like late deposits, hidden notifications, empty promises to stop, short, tiny streaks of honesty, and then relapse. And you see, truth doesn't shatter all at once. Neither does trust. The trust, well, it actually thins. And think of it like a stone under constant water. The water's going to shape the stone. And one day, his wife was just tired. Not angry, but tired. And tired is quiet. She had been shaped. And quiet was the one thing that Daniel just could not tolerate. After she left, the house sounded different. He said the rooms would echo. He started sleeping with the television on because the noise helped. The noise drowned his thoughts. And in his pocket was a device that could manufacture noise in seconds. He didn't have to drive anywhere. There wouldn't be any witnesses. No walk of shame leaving the casino. Just tap, deposit, and spin. Here's what people misunderstand about addiction. It doesn't feel chaotic in the moment. It actually feels focused, hyper-focused. And in that moment, the rest of the world fades around you. The only thing that exists is the next outcome. And the brain loves unpredictable outcomes. Variable is pure gasoline. And Daniel understood that. Daniel could explain dopamine pathways to anybody. He understood how it works. But that knowledge did not protect him. Because knowledge doesn't quiet the loneliness. After the $5,000 loss, he didn't gamble for 3 days. He said those 3 days felt like progress. He had cleaned, organized, made lists. And you see, friends, short streaks like that create the illusion of control. It lies to him and says, hey, I can stop anytime. And on the 4th night, he opened his phone just to look. Maybe to check the odds, just to see what's going on, just to observe. But observation becomes participation faster than we admit. He deposited $50, lost it in 8 minutes, and then something in him just hardened. Not panic, but resignation. He started speaking differently. And like I always say, words matter. Context matters. He stopped saying, I'll fix it. And he started saying, I will always do this. And that shift matters. Because I'll fix it is future oriented. I always do this is identity based. Addiction becomes lethal when behavior fuses with identity. When relapse stops being an event and becomes a self-description. Daniel once told me, I feel like I'm shrinking. Not financially, but internally. Shrinking belief, shrinking options, shrinking hope that repair was possible. When someone feels their future shrinking, they start making decisions from scarcity. You see, scarcity fuels desperation. Desperation fuels risk. And risk fuels relapse. History shows us this pattern everywhere. Empires don't collapse in explosions. They erode over time. They erode. Think of Rome. Rome didn't fall in one morning. It tolerated small compromises. It normalized dysfunction, expanded beyond its structural capacity. It ignored cracks because the buildings were still standing. So from the outside, it looked intact. But inside, the foundation was thinning. And addiction is no different. Alcohol, drugs, gambling, pornography. You see, the substance can change. Put in there anyone you like. But the erosion will remain the same. It never changes. Small compromises, rationalizations, fatigue, isolation, silence. And eventually, belief that repair is impossible. There were off-ramps. Daniel had said a friend asked him directly, are you gambling again? And he paused. That pause was an exit ramp. Because he could have said yes, but he didn't. And then a meeting invitation came. Gamblers Anonymous. Just come sit, his friend said. There's no pressure. He typed the address into his phone. Of course, he didn't go. Then he got a text message. It said, "Call me. No judgment." He read it. He didn't respond. Not because help wasn't there, but because shame made it invisible. It made the hope invisible. Shame says, "You've already failed. You should know better. You've run out of chances." And slowly the off-ramps disappear. Not physically, but perceptually, the way he saw it. Daniel, well, he stopped talking about things like next year. He stopped talking about rebuilding. He started talking about right now. And you see, addiction narrows time. Hope expands it. He was losing time perspective. The gambling shifted. There was less thrill, more numbness. And he wasn't chasing jackpots. He was simply chasing interruption. When addiction moves from excitement to anesthesia, that's when the erosion really accelerates. Daniel took his own life. He didn't die because he was weak. He died because shame isolated him faster than help could reach him. He mistook his relapse for identity. He believed erosion was permanent, but it wasn't. But he believed it was, and that's all that mattered. And belief narrowed his whole world until he could no longer see the off-ramps. You see, addiction feels permanent. Despair feels permanent. Shame feels permanent. But friends, urges are temporary. Silence is temporary. Moments are temporary. And strength is built in temporary decisions. And that right there is the fork in the road. That's where the story changes. My name is Jonathan, but I go by Historacle. I'm a man who understands erosion, and I refuse to let the silence take one more of us. Along with history stories that refuse to be forgotten, I tell real life stories about real people and how their stories affect us all. If you're struggling with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER. If you're overwhelmed or hopeless, call or text 988. Resources are in the show notes. And let me be clear on this. You are not beyond repair. The off-ramps are still there. Please give yourself grace because you're worth it. We're not finished just yet. So I expect to see you at the next episode.